Over the past 2 years, mayors across the United States have had the difficult task of taking on national issues, such as America's handling of the pandemic and the fallout from the 2020 general election. In addition to their state and local duties, like managing their city's budget and affordable housing and, of course, infrastructure, in essence, the mayor is directly responsible for everything that impacts a municipality. This past election, we saw a number of black candidates step up to the plate to take on the responsibilities that come with being a leader of a large U.S. city. And dozens of black mayors were sworn in at the beginning of the year. But what does it take to be an effective mayor if you're black? And does having a black mayor result in conscious changes in urban policy? Here to answer those questions and much more is Dr. Ravi Perry, Chair and Professor of Political Science at Howard University. Good evening and welcome to Amplified, and congratulations. I was just telling him in the break that I haven't had a chance to say congratulations since he's held this post, and he's in his third year now, which is awesome. So, Dr. Perry, I just want to start off by, having a conversation with you about the impact of black mayors in cities. I'm curious, have you in your research seen whether electing black mayors has impacted the upward mobility of black low-income residents at all? Give us some historical context there.
Wow, well, I'm thrilled to be with you, Aisha. This is such an amazing platform. I'm so thrilled and honored for you, and absolutely, HU, we're here to make it happen on the hilltop. So everyone who wants to come join us at Howard, come do so. And you know what is so significant about Howard? We have graduated a lot of black mayors, including in our department, for example, former mayor of Atlanta, Kasim Reed. So we understand the power of electing black mayors to the most powerful position in any municipality. And here's what we have found. My life's work has been focused on black mayors and what they do for black people in fiscally conservative environments and in places where blacks are not the majority. And maybe surprised to know that most black mayors are mayors of majority white cities. And yet I believe that they still have an obligation to advocate aggressively for African-American interest. And what we have found out is that that's exactly what they've been doing since the turn of the 21st century. But particularly in the last decade, and this last election is really just icing on the cake. We've seen millennial mayors win major cities like in Cleveland. We've seen black women mayors take over some of the largest cities in the country, like in San Francisco. We have seen mayors win in cities that they've never won before. Like in Little Rock, Arkansas, or St. Petersburg, Florida. And we have seen some mayors have a little bit of challenges with their constituencies, like Mayor Brown in Buffalo, for example, or Mayor Lumumba in Jackson, Mississippi. But all of this is a testament to the power that mayors have to change lived conditions of people. In each of those cases, we have seen uptick in employment and job opportunity and educational opportunity for low-income residents and for urban residents in those cities. And I would just add that you don't have to be a mayor of a big city to make that change. You can be a mayor of a small town, such as the new mayor in South Portland, Maine, African-American, or you can find, the new mayor of medium-sized cities, such as in Durham, North Carolina. And so you don't have to be a mayor of a large city to make big change. It's really about the fact that you have the power of the gavel, so to speak, in a strong mayoral position, because it's really everything stops at the mayor's desk.
Right, right. I'm thinking about the fact that there is some upward mobility here. So when you get a black mayor, black people going to do well is kind of what we want to assume. And I'm thinking about, say, D.C., where I spent over 20 years, mayor for life, Marion Barry, with all of his personal issues and drama, actually did a lot in the way that he governed to create a very solid chocolate city and black middle class that persists today, where you have Prince George's County, Montgomery County, that are home to some of the wealthiest suburbs for black Americans, largely the output of what that black mayor was able to do. And I wonder, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Is it because you have a black mayor come in and that ultimately gets rid of some of the discrimination and bias maybe that black people had been feeling in that city? Or maybe there's some positive bias that actually is really focused on lifting up black people? Don't know which one happens there, but I'm also thinking about modern times, right, where you have these mayors, like you said, of majority white cities. We've got a new mayor here in New York City who is a black man that is talking tough on black people, talking tough on crime, talking tough around a lot of issues about the working class that makes me raise my eyebrow about what his outcome. I'm talking about Mayor Adams here is gonna, we'll see what's gonna happen with black people. But I'm curious, what is your take on how the governing happens through a black lens, especially in cities that are not majority black or even majority minority, and what that means to policy and practice for people of color?
Excellent questions, Aisha. And so the challenge for mayor or any mayor in any major city is to represent all of their constituents. If you're a person of color, if you're a member of a marginalized community, you're a woman, you're a member of the LGBTQ community like myself or somewhere else, then you have an additional burden. You have what we call in social science and overly high expectations placed upon you to be able to solve some of the problems that systemically they have been unable to be solved by people who did not look like them or share their identity. And so when you're black, when you're the first woman, when you're the first Irish person, when you're the first disabled person, people of that group expect you to be able to do more things for them because they haven't seen someone like you in that seat of power before. And that puts really overly, I think, high expectations on black mayors because while they may want to do so, in many instances, we have seen decades of black mayors that has not led to substantive change in terms of, let's say, poor African Americans. We can look at Atlanta. We can look at here in DC. We can look at Detroit, Michigan, places that have had black mayors for decades. And guess what? The black poor are still pretty poor. And so we have some challenges in that descriptive representation alone cannot and will not solve the black challenges in low-income communities in particular. We still have to focus on substantive representation. And by that we mean, while you may be black, I still need you to represent my substantive interests, whether or not you agree with them or not in terms of your vision, your policies, or your partisanship. So you take Mayor Adams, for example, the challenge that he's going to have as the second black mayor of one of the world's largest cities is that he's going to have to find a way to navigate the international economic dynamics while also, ensuring that he is speaking to the voices of the folks who actually elected him into that position. And those people tend to be black. They tend to be lower and middle class, and they want to hear what he is doing for them. They don't want to hear, as he sadly, I think, has been quoted over much of the past several weeks, referring to people as his workers, as his residents, as his first line defenders. That is not how mayors, I think, of color are used to being effective in working with their communities in African-American neighborhoods. We're going to have to see more of a we conversation because what empowers black mayors is that they have the shared racial experience with many of their constituents. And because of that, they're able to use that background to work with whites and other groups to get some change that benefits everybody. It's a theory that I have written about called targeted universalism, which is borrowed from the legal field and really from John Powell and the Othering and Belonging Institute when he was formerly at the Kirwan Institute for Race and Ethnicity at The Ohio State University. And I applied it to urban politics, which said that if you run and you win, what do you do then for African Americans? And how do you sell white folks that what you're doing for black folks is not hurting them? And we have seen plenty of examples of this. And the best story of it now is Maynard Jackson in the 70s in Atlanta. The reason why we have that amazing airport that everyone has gone to in the world, the reason why we have that black middle class, the reason why we have such significant black empowerment in that Atlanta region is because that mayor decided to say in the 70s, decades ago, that black folks should have a piece of that city contract pie. And what we see across the country is that mayors are doing that dramatically, and that is changing the economic situation for African Americans around the country.
Dr. Ravi Perry, I got to tell you, I'm going to have you back so we can talk more about the actual politics of electing all these folks. So appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here on Amplified.